Welcome to Shomach Shov on the Daf. We're starting a new Masechta, Maseches Menachos. It is an opening to this Masechta. Let's try to understand this name that this korban is called. It's called a Mincha. Why is it called a Mincha? What does a Mincha mean? Mincha means a gift. When Yaakov Avinu sends a gift to his brother Esav, it's called a Mincha. Mincha is shlucha. Why, when we're giving a korban which is made out of flour, out of soilus, it's called a mincha? Well, we're giving a korban out of an animal, that's not a mincha. What's the pshat that soilus is a mincha? So we'll try to explain this based on a chinuch, but we'll start with the Akdama. And the Akdama is based on a Torah, which is brought down in two big Sifrei Chasidus. One is the Baal Tanya, mentions in a few places in his Sfarim, but he writes it in a very Kabbalistic way, in a very difficult way to read it inside. And the other one is the Shem Shmuel, in two places in Parshas Lech Lecha. So happens to be that both the yard side of the Baal Tanya and the yard side of the Shem Shmuel is on Chavdalet Teves, which is the day that we're learning Menachos Daf Beis. So very appropriate on the day of these yard sides will bring a vort on their name. The Shem Shmuel in Lech Lecha Tafish Shayin Daled, he brings a question in the name of his father. It says when Avraham Avinu comes to Melchizedek moitzi lechem v'yayin. So Rashi says it's a remiss for the Menachos and Nesachim. So I asked Avnei Nezer, why do you bring a remiss to Menachos and Nesachim and not the Ika korban? So he explains based on the Yesod. We mentioned it a little bit at the end of Maseches Vachim. The behemoths, the animals, they are living creatures. They have a nefesh to them, so they're more comparable to an Adam. And they're easier to elevate and connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to connect as a korban. But things that grow from the ground, tzemach, like the menachos that come from the flour, from wheat, that's something which is harder to connect it as a korban to make it Kaddish to Hashem. As the Shem Shmuel writes, it's easier to be magbiyah the nefesh chiyunis by a korban than to magbiyah the nefesh at tzimachas, which comes from menachos and nesachim. And later the Shem Shmuel explains it a little bit more. They have to chait Adam Harishon niskalkalo Adama. The Adam became a kulkul. So that's why it's far away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever grows from the ground is not easy to connect. Only lasid lavoi, we're going to have bread growing from the ground, which means the Adam will come to a tikkun. The chiddush by Avraham Avinu, the Melchizedek, is that he was able to be touching upon what's going to be lasid lavoi, and that's what Melchizedek is miramis to him, the mincha and nesachim of Am Yisrael, not just a regular korban, but he's able to take from the ground and bring it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what Baal Tanya mentions, the idea of the mincha is taking the tzomeach and be makiv to Hashem. Ayin, this Tfasemes, Pasha Shlach, Tafish Meinvov, that he adds to another nekudo, that we know that an animal represents the Adam. We mentioned a lot in Masechet Zvachim, Divrei Ramban, that the reason for karbonis, a simple reason for karbonis, is that the behemoth replaces the Adam. So behemoth is very clearly the replacement of Adam. But a mincha is not, doesn't reflect the Adam. It's a little different. And the Maisa is what the Sefer Chinuch writes in Mitzvah Kuf Tetzayin. He says like this: clearly Baal Chai is a dimyon chazak etzel Adam. It's for Adam to say, to relate to a behemoth and see, this is me. This is replacing me. It's something which is very easy to do. Masha'inkin, when we're talking about a mincha, says the Sefer Chinuch, that doesn't relate so much to the Adam, but it compares to his mammon. It's like that he owns. It's not really him. And that's why, says the Sefer Chinuch, it's harder for an Adam to reflect himself into the mincha and feel that he's giving Sayyid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is himself. To put that all together, we'll bring in what we brought in a previous shir, the Ridvaz on the Rambam, and Hilchas Sanhedrin and the Perek Ches, that explains there's a difference between Gufa Adam and the Mammon of Adam. The Guf of the Adam, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him to do with the things. It doesn't belong to him. A person can't decide to come and punish himself or hurt himself. It's not his. But the Mammon of Adam belongs to him. And therefore one can decide to just take his money and throw it away. And this is a Pasha explanation in the Gemara in Chulin of Tzadik Aleph that says that tzadikim chavivim mamoinim yoyser megufam. A tzadik wants more his money than his body. The answer is the body is of course HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me my body to do with it good things. It's not a chiddush if I use it for good. But when someone earns money, it's his, he owns it. And he gives that to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a much bigger, greater elevation that a person could do. And that's why tzaddikim are very happy with it. So putting all this together, we could come with the following mahalach. A mincha which comes from that tzumeach is harder to elevate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Either because the Sefer Chasidus say, because it's tzumeach, it doesn't have nefesh chiyunis, or like the Sefer Chinuch, because it then less reflects who the Adam is. This compares to the moment of the Adam, which is under his control and is harder to elevate to Hashem. When a person comes and gives that to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's a very special elevation. That's a special gift that he gives above. Korbanos is natural. You have animals, you give them to Hashem. Since the beginning of creation, that's what people did. But to take a mincha, which is a tzumeach, which is less reflective of Adam, and bring that to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's a mincha. That's a special gift. That's something which is more of someone giving from himself. Giving something which is more of a donation, something which is more of a gift, of a matana, of a mincha. As the Sefer Achinu concludes, so the uniqueness of this carbon, which is a tzumeach and less reflective of Adam, is a special gift that we give to Hashem, and therefore the name of it is Mincha, Lashon gift. Anyone who wants to join or sponsor the Shom Machshava Shiurim, please email shommachshava@gmail.com.